You know, sometimes standing up for yourself can change everything. Not just how others see you, but also how you see yourself. That's when things start to shift, and that's when confidence begins to pay off. And that's really the story of Taiwan right now. After years of adjusting, reacting, and finding space in a crowded world, Taiwan's starting to build its own rhythm. And to make choices that way, we know who we are and we're ready to prove it, or at least that has to be the sentiment. You can feel it across so many headlines this week. For example, President Lai is pushing cities and counties to take real actions on carbon reduction, not just to meet global expectations, but to shape Taiwan's own path to net zero. At the same time, he's talking about keeping Taiwan's wealth here at home, turning what financial strength we have into what he calls a golden age. And the military is training new drone units. The digital ministry is protecting undersea cables, the lifeline of the internet. And through it all, Taiwan's diplomats are sending one clear message that we're not anyone's bargaining chip. It's all connected, standing tall, taking ownership, trusting your own foundation. That's how resilience starts to look like leadership. And resilience, as we know, is the key word for the Lai administration and will continue to be for the next 2.5 years. When you build that kind of confidence, the world starts to notice. And this week, we'll look at how Taiwan's new sense of self is shaping everything from its friendships abroad to its future at home. Hi, you're listening to Beyond the Reefs, a show produced by Radio Taiwan International. Here we talk about socio-economic issues that are faced by Taiwan and their broader impact around the world beyond the reefs of this island nation. As we wrapped up our conversation last week over a couple of episodes, a conversation with Doña L. Francis, ambassador to Taiwan from St. Kitts and Nevis, or St. Christopher and Nevis. This week, we start our first story about Belize, one of Taiwan's 12 diplomatic allies. And hold on, let's see if I could actually name them all. So the 12, we have, I think 5 of them are in the Caribbean, a couple in South America. So in the Caribbean, we have St. Kitts and Nevis, the 3 saints, right? The St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and St. Lucia. Okay, so that's the 3 saints. And then there's Belize that we're about to talk about. There is also Haiti is the last one from the Caribbean or around the Caribbean Sea. And then in South America, we have Paraguay. And then there is Guatemala. That's who Guatemala is one of them. And then the easy one is the European one, of course, the Holy See, Vatican, I suppose. Which is really everybody's allies almost. And then we have a few in the Pacific Ocean, Marshall Islands, Tuvalu, and Palau. Palau is our longest, or our possibly our closest as well, geographically speaking, allies. And then in Africa, we have one remaining ally, which is Eswatini. Yeah. Is that 12? I think that's 12. Anyway, a little pat on my own back. So Belize, let's start our conversation there this week. Belize's new ambassador to Taiwan is Catherine Vanessa Megan, settling into her post, and for her, it's a homecoming. Like Doña L. Francis, ambassador to St. Christopher, ambassador to Taiwan from St. Christopher and Nevis, Ambassador Catherine Vanessa Megan also studied her MBA in Taiwan 20 years ago, and now she's back. Not as a student, but as her country's top diplomat. In her chat with RTI, Ambassador Megan says Taiwan feels both familiar and transformed. More global, more confident, but just as welcoming as she remembered 20 years ago. Her focus is on trade, investment, and education. Belize is exporting premium cacao and newly approved frozen shrimp to Taiwan. And I would say Taiwan and Belize's friendship is a story that can be told through numbers alone. So from 2 scholarship students from 20 years ago to now 64 scholarship students from Belize this year alone. Ambassador Megan also wants to work on women's empowerment and tech exchanges, and for her, it's about turning friendship into opportunity and opportunity into growth for both. What makes this story stand out isn't just the diplomacy, it's the personal connection. Again, same with Ambassador Doña L. Francis from St. Christopher and Nevis last week. Ambassador Megan from Belize's journey captures how Taiwan's soft power actually works. It's not about handshakes or press releases. It's about people who've actually lived here, learned here, and carried that bond back into the world. And that's quite fueling Taiwan's network of allies. Trust built over years, not days, and I might argue those tend to be stronger than simply political or economic ties. And for Taiwan, especially after last week's chat with Ambassador Doña Francis, this shows something powerful. Small countries linked by shared experiences stand taller together. When education turns into cooperation, that's diplomacy that lasts, and that's looking at the big picture for the long-term effects. And maybe this is what Taiwan does best, building bridges that don't rust with time. About continuing friendship, our next story is about North Carolina's governor visiting Taiwan, marking what I believe is the third visit from an American state governor. There's Arizona in March, Tennessee in October, and of course Carolina early November. But this also marks, I think, the dozenth U.S. state governor who has shown interest in collaborating with Taiwan and maybe even signed an MOU. So from North Carolina, Governor Josh Stein just made the state's first visit to Taiwan in 25 years. He met with President Lai Ching-te, and their message was clear. We got to work together in biotech, electric vehicles, and artificial intelligence. Both leaders say the partnership isn't just about trade. It's about connecting talent and innovation. President Lai pointed out that North Carolina's universities and Taiwan's tech industries are natural matches. Stein agreed, saying that his state's biggest strength is its people, and he sees a lot of overlap in values and capacity. The state even opened a trade office in Taipei last year, which Lai called a bridge to America's innovation belt. It's another example of Taiwan working directly with U.S. states, not waiting on Washington. What's smart here is the strategy. Taiwan knows that real progress in U.S. relations often starts at the state level, where things move faster and stay less political. By connecting directly with places like North Carolina, Taiwan taps into America's innovation and that ecosystem and avoids getting stuck in federal red tape. It's a new kind of diplomacy, less about the big speeches, more about rolling up sleeves and building things together. When you mix Taiwan's manufacturing precision with North Carolina's research and engineering power, you get a pretty good partnership that's practical, not just symbolic. And that's the kind of relationship that lasts, grounded in results, not rhetoric. And also, Taiwan is working on expanding its drone training to strengthen defense. The Ministry of Defense is stepping up its drone training programs, not just for one branch of the military, but for all four: the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and Marines. Deputy Chief Lin Sui said the goal is simple: prepare every unit for modern warfare, something that maybe we should have done earlier. The ministry now divides drones into three categories: joint level for long-range surveillance and strike missions, tactical for identifying enemy ships and coastal threats, and combat level for real-time battlefield attacks. It's a part of a larger plan to make unmanned systems a key point of Taiwan's asymmetric defense strategy, using smaller, smarter tools to counter large forces. To speed things up, the government formed a Defense Innovation Office last year to work directly with local and foreign companies. They're focusing on imaging, anti-jamming, and control systems, building the ability to produce drones at home instead of waiting on imports. As Lian put it, the goal is to, quote, shorten timeline and strengthen independence. Now, that story isn't just about drones, it's about mindset. Taiwan's military is learning from places like Ukraine, where fast adaptation, homegrown innovation changed the course of war. And waiting on international support is, well, first off, time-consuming, and secondly, highly political and can change at the snap of a finger. And so the message is that flexibility wins. What fits perfectly with Taiwan's broader stories this week is confidence, is self-reliance, designing overreaction. Every drone pilot trained, every system built locally added another layer to that architecture of trust. Because in the end, defense isn't only about hardware, it's about believing you can handle what's coming. And if you only procure hardware from places like the US, then you end up with, possible delays in delivery, and also your software is constantly in need of updates, and then you're completely reliant on the host country. To understand what these developments could mean for Taiwan's future battlefield capabilities, Taiwan Plus spoke with GlobeSec Associate Fellow Bryce Barrows.
The Defense Ministry says it has set up an AI project office for the military. What do you expect to see from this new office?
I think a big thing that this office should focus on is making sure that Taiwan has a better integration of artificial intelligence when it comes to identifying, surveilling, and doing reconnaissance on whatever kind of PLA or Chinese-related drones might be coming into Taiwan's sort of territorial waters, which is a real possibility in the future. I think the other thing that this office could do, too, is ensuring that Taiwan is quickly able to integrate its different sort of like joint operation, common operation picture to be able to better sort of assess a battlefield, figure out what it needs to do next, that kind of thing. Having an AI office of M&D allows Taiwan to be able to do faster, quicker, and more efficient, and allows more soldiers, airmen, Marines, sailors, etc., policemen, in the case of Taiwan, to focus on, other sort of tasks related to what their basic sort of skills are for whatever service branch they're in.
Another important development is Taiwan's establishment of new drone units. How do you view the significance of formally bringing drones into military service?
So one, Taiwan needs to have a better understanding of what are the tactics, techniques, procedures that come with engaging in drone warfare in today's day and age. I think the most important thing is making sure that Taiwan is able to use UUVs, USVs, and UAVs that are longer range to keep PLA forces at bay as long as they can possibly be kept at. And specifically, artificial intelligence or autonomous weapon systems and counter drone is most important, I think. Putting a very strong premium on counter drone and hardening bases is going to be really key. So making sure that Taiwan has all the counter drone capabilities it can muster for every defensive facility or every key government facility is going to be really important going forward.
So confidence matters and abilities matters for homegrown tech. And Taiwan's approach is innovate first, cooperate second, shows that the country isn't waiting for anyone else to secure its skies. Now let's talk about the softer power. President Lai Ching-te says Taiwan's next big step isn't just technological, it's financial. At a major asset management forum, Lai announced plans to create an Asia Asset Management Center, or AAMC. His message was quite bold, actually. So let's keep money in Taiwan and manage it ourselves. He pointed out that Taiwan's economy is already strong. Foreign reserves over $600 billion, a stock market worth $3 trillion, and total financial assets topping about $4.2. But too much of that money, he said, is invested overseas, especially in foreign bonds. So the new center aims to channel domestic wealth back into Taiwan's own industries, everything from semiconductors and AI to renewable energy and defense. This is more than economic policy, it's a confidence statement. Lai is saying that Taiwan doesn't have to rely on foreign markets to grow. It can fund its own innovation, train its own talent, and build its own version of prosperity. And if it works, this could redefine Taiwan's financial identity, turning the island into a regional capital hub, not just a manufacturing one. If Taiwanese investors, and especially for Taiwanese financial systems like banking and insurance companies, to invest in our own industries, then we can maybe turn the TAIEX into a highly attractive and growing capital market that can draw money from all over Asia, and no longer playing second fiddle to, say, Japan's Nikkei and South Korea's Kospi. And in a world where capital often chases short-term returns, Taiwan's move to invest in itself is both practical and symbolic, a reminder that true security includes economic sovereignty. You can't stand tall abroad if you're not standing steady at home. But of course, the financial system is also highly interconnected, and in order for that connection to stay physically present, we need our undersea cables, which is why our next story is about exactly that.
Taiwan's undersea cables are under threat. About 8 are damaged every year, and they're often caused by suspicious civilian vessels. Why is that happening? Officials and experts are gathering in Taipei to discuss how to work with international partners to protect the network. Taiwan's Foreign Minister Lin says the country has a lot to learn from Europe, which faces similar threats. A member of the European Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee says 46 incidents were recorded worldwide just last year, the highest in more than a decade. And cases with strategic motives or suspicious proximity are clearly on the rise, meaning more global cooperation is needed.
We need real-time data sharing between the allies and partners, clear mechanisms for attribution of responsibility and consequences for those who try to disrupt economic, political, diplomatic, or deliberate sabotage.
The discussion comes as Taiwan steps up efforts to strengthen its undersea cable laws. Starting Thursday, the legislature will review proposed amendments to laws related to the supply of electricity, natural gas, and water, all part of the country's 7 undersea cable bills. As Taiwan gears up to review its legal tools to protect the undersea cables, learning from its international allies and strengthening collaboration efforts are becoming more crucial than ever.
If Taiwan's economy mainly runs on chips, then its communication runs on cables, the undersea kind, and those cables have been taking a beating. Not just Taiwan, really, all around the world, there have been ships going around cutting undersea cables, but over the past few years, they've been damaged 8 times a year, often by dredger and fishing boats operating near Taiwan's waters. Now, these ships fly all kinds of flags, but I think we have a pretty good idea. There are a couple of countries where they're mainly from. Now, this week, Digital Minister Lin said the government will boost international cooperation to protect those critical lines. This means new surveillance and warning systems, better backup networks using satellite and microwaves, and faster response and repair protocols. Taiwan's also joining the International Cable Protection Committee to communicate defenses and share data with other countries. Now, this might sound technical, but it's actually one of the most strategic moves of the year. Undersea cables carry 95% of the world's internet data. Emails, markets, military coordination. So protecting them isn't just about keeping Netflix running. Okay, that's basic. It's about national security and global stability. Taiwan's decision to lean on this shows a shift from being a risk hotspot to a risk manager. It's smart diplomacy through infrastructure, using technology as a bridge to cooperation. And just like in the financial world, it's about control, securing the unseen systems that hold the country together. So as you can see, the week's happenings and all of these stories are all connected. It's Taiwan making steps to improve on itself in every capacity and everywhere through every industry. And if it works, then hopefully this final story is a telltale sign. So good news to wrap up the week with is the Taiwan Institute of Economic Research, TIER, just raised its 2025 growth forecast to 5.94%, possibly even breaking 6%. That's on the back of strong exports, rising domestic demand, and the global AI investment boom despite the tariff complication. So TIER Director Chang says Taiwan's been growing faster than expected all year, with quarterly numbers between 5 and 8%. We're talking about GDP growth, by the way. Government stimulus programs and a wave of tech investment are helping push things higher. Even the ongoing tariff talk with Washington might turn out in Taiwan's favor, bringing in duties on U.S. cars down to 2.5%. This isn't just an economic update, it's the payoff. After years of uncertainty, Taiwan's growth is finally matching its global relevance. And what's most telling is that growth comes from no speculation, but solid fundamentals. Technology, manufacturing, and consumer confidence. And this is while countries in North America and in Europe are accumulating astronomical amounts of debt with recession looming. So if earlier stories in this episode were about building foundations, this is one about standing on them. Taiwan's new architecture on trust in finance, defense, and diplomacy is starting to show real results. And when a small island manages to do all that while keeping its balance, the world notices. Thank you for joining me for another episode. We will go beyond the reefs again next week to explore all socio-economic issues that are faced by Taiwan and their broader impact around the world. If you like the show, please write me at joeychou@rti.org.tw.